Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Wheatley. I'm the Executive Director of the Cloverdale District Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin today, I would just like to respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we meet is on the unceded traditional territories of the Matsqui, Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo First Nations. I would also like to acknowledge the Cloverdale Chamber directors that are here with us today. Our President, Adam Smith, our Vice President, Rebecca Smith, no relation, and our Treasurer, Sandra Parker. Our Directors at Large that are here or coming today are Harbier Dillon, Paul Orizetti, Jackie McBain, if there's any, and Tyler Dennis, and Jen Temple. And so I'd also like to recognize that Ramona Capitan is on the board of the South Surrey White Rock Chamber. She's coming today as well. We're working together a bit with the South Surrey White Rock Chamber to bring this event on because it covers both of our areas. I'd like to invite our Cloverdale Board President, Adam Smith, who's also a past president of the South Surrey White Rock Chamber of Commerce, to invite our sponsor.
Thank you, Scott. Good evening, everybody. Adam Smith. I'm the this year's president of the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce, and I'm glad to welcome you here to our event. And these things don't happen without sponsors, and we'd like to invite our sponsor, the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, to come up and say a couple of words, if you will. Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Manny Shada, and on behalf of tonight's sponsor, the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board, and on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I would like to welcome you all to tonight's candidates meeting. Before we begin, I would like to introduce the board to you all. So the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board represents 5,200 realtors in the Lower Mainland, spanning from North Delta all the way to Abbotsford, including Mission, Langley, City and Township of Langley, Surrey, and North Delta. As realtors, we guide, advise, and protect home buyers and sellers through one of the most significant financial decisions of their lives, the buying and selling of their home. The board plays a crucial role in equipping us to support our clients by providing ongoing training, ensuring professional standards, and offering the latest data and insights to keep us informed. While here, I would like to also take the opportunity to briefly highlight the work of the Fraser Valley Realtors Charitable Foundation. Our goal is to create a Fraser Valley where vulnerable youth are protected and have healthy and stable environments to live, learn, and play. Supporting at-risk youth not only changes their lives, but strengthens the fabric of our society. When young people are set on a safe and stable path, the entire community benefits, from stronger families to long-term economic growth and sustainable development. Through lots of hard work, to date, we have donated more than $500,000 to at-risk youth in our local communities, and we are on track to be donating $1 million per year directly to the children that need it. Our focus here through these programs is to ensure that the kids in our communities who need it most are not left behind. So given that we're in Cloverdale, I'll just give you all a quick snapshot of this market. Townhouse inventory in Cloverdale specifically is up 77% compared to this time last year, and condos are up 103%. Detached home sales have dropped 35%. However, Cloverdale remains one of the most attractive places for people to live, and we see that through the statistics and the trends. As we turn our attention to tonight's candidates, it's crucial to remember the significance of voting in elections. Voting is not just a right, it is a responsibility that allows us to shape the future of our communities. The officials we elect will make decisions that affect our neighborhood, housing, infrastructure, healthcare, schools, and our overall quality of life. And by voting, we ensure that those voices are heard and that we play a direct role in creating safe, vibrant, and healthy neighborhoods. For those of us in the real estate industry, events like tonight are particularly important because we have a unique understanding of our communities. We're on the front lines, we are working with people, and we hear your concerns. Your Fraser Valley Real Estate Board shows up to events like this to make sure that your concerns are heard by our future elected officials. I encourage everyone here tonight to carefully listen to the candidates and engage with the issues that matter most to you. Together, through informed voting and community involvement, we can build a better future. Thank you all for attending tonight.
Great, thank you very much. Next, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Rebecca Smith, who has had, she's been our advocacy chair for a number of years, and she's had a very long and successful career in public and private business and life. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you, Scott. I have had a long, successful life so far. So it is one of my profound privileges to participate actively in our democracy in Canada, and it is one of my greatest pleasures is debate, which people who know me would not be surprised by, but especially when it is important to our communities and our lives. And I think it's really amazing that I see so many faces here tonight. It's so important that we participate in what happens in our communities, in our province, in our nation. And you being here shows that you understand your role as a citizen. And I thank you very much for taking the time to do so. It's really important, and it is awesome to see your faces. We have a variety of questions here tonight, and we've taken them from submissions from our sponsors as well as our members and our community, and I'm hoping that we get to touch on all of them, but we are tight on time. So what I will do is a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. If you are expecting a call or just have a phone, which I'm pretty sure most of you do, can you please put it on silent or vibrate? If you do get a call or need to talk to someone, please exit the room in order to do so that you don't disturb those around you who are listening to the information that's being shared tonight. This is a moderated debate, so the questions are already submitted. I'm sure that the candidates will be happy to stick around afterwards if you have independent questions that you want answered, or if you have things that you need clarified for you before voting day. Early voting starts on October 10th, and E-Day is October 19th. I'm assuming that all of you will be doing that important check of the box, and that's why you're here tonight, so I thank you again for doing so. So our debate is importantly designed to be nonpartisan and as informative as possible. And because we have parties represented here, we will not be allowing every single person here to answer every question. When there is a party platform at play, that party will have one representative answer the question. So you may see the two candidates that are on their own tonight. We have one Green Party candidate and one independent candidate. They will be answering all the questions, and our Conservatives and NDPs will be taking turns answering the questions based on their party platforms. And we hope that that serves you as voters, but also it serves our time constraints for the evening. We will begin in a moment with each and every candidate getting to introduce themselves. They will have 1 minute to do so. We have our lovely timekeeper, Scott Wheatley, in the front row. You'll notice he has some a yellow and a red card. Yellow will indicate 30 seconds to the end of their time. Red indicates they're at 60 seconds, that's the minute mark, and their mic will be cut. We will not be allowing anyone to bully their way through and keep talking. We're going to keep moving so everyone gets a chance. So everyone will get an opportunity to introduce themselves. Hoping that time permits, everyone will have an opportunity for a final closing remark. And in between, everyone will get 1 minute to answer each of the questions. It is a moderated time. We are restricted. We have a lot of questions. And so we're hoping to get through as much as possible. With your help, we should be able to do so. So, without further ado, I will be starting here to my left with Eleanor Sturko. You have 1 minute to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out. Nice to see so many people engaged. I'm Eleanor Sturko, and I'm the BC Conservative candidate here in Surrey-Cloverdale. I'm a former RCMP sergeant. My last posting was at the Surrey RCMP, and it was because of the things that I saw happening in the community and really in the greater British Columbia area that really inspired me to get into politics, to see if I could translate that experience into real change for people in the province. I'm also a mother. I have 3 young kids in the Surrey School District. And I'm here running in Cloverdale because I really want to address the things that are, really impacting people. That's our collapsing healthcare system. It's our affordability crisis. And it's just everyday people trying to make ends meet in a province that has really become unaffordable. 1 in 3 people wanting to leave British Columbia at this point because they can't afford a place to live. We want to come into British Columbia as the government.
Good evening, everyone, and my name is Linda Hepner. I am running in the new riding of Surrey-Serpentine, and I have been a resident of Surrey for the last 40 years. I'm a grandmother of 5, all of whom live within 10 minutes of me, so I'm really engaged in the sporting community and making sure that the kids are well educated and having fun at the same time. And what brought me into politics, first of all, I was the mayor, and I served 3 terms as city councilor, and I worked at the city for 21 years. So my depth of understanding of this community and this city is very deep. I came into politics, again, out of retirement, because I could see what was happening in the province. It bothers me greatly to see the unaffordable aspect, the health care, the education, the financial.
You let me know, Scott, when I got to go. All right, go. Evening, folks. Baltej Dillon, BC NDP candidate for Surrey-Serpentine River with Linda Hepner here. And 40 years in British Columbia, 35 years in Surrey, 35 years in policing. Most of it fighting organized crime and gangs, and I retired as an inspector, officer in charge of emergency management here in British Columbia. I've come into this life, it's no easy life, I got to tell you, is to bring some of my expertise and understanding of what hasn't worked within policing, and to add and build on all the work that is working within the BC NDP, where they have put a number of practices and initiatives in place that are starting to take hold, and it's turning a corner. So now is not the time to turn back. And it is important that we continue to do the work that has already been started. There's a lot to do, not going to deny that. There's much to do. And this is the one party that I chose that has a shown track record over the last little.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you to the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board for your comments at the beginning. As a new townhouse owner in the Clayton area, I appreciate the work and the stats that you guys come forward with. My name is Mike Starchuk. I've just finished serving 4 years as your MLA here in Cloverdale. Prior to that, 1 term on City Council, and prior to that, more importantly to me, as a Surrey firefighter for 32 years. I've lived in the city, probably the elder statesman that's here for over 55 years. So I've watched the city grow into what it is from a community that's apart from Vancouver. We are talking about things in this community that are important to everybody, and that's when it comes to healthcare, education, and a yellow card that's scaring me to death right now. And so those are the things that are important to us. When we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about transit, we're talking about those things that are really important, and we're talking about what's at risk.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Harun Ghaffar. I'm the BC NDP candidate from Surrey South. As a former journalist and a public servant, I have dedicated my career to amplifying voices and advocating for our communities. In these challenging times, I believe in leaders who prioritize people over politics. I believe in a BC where everyone has access to affordable housing, quality healthcare, and strong education system. Under Premier David Eby, the BC NDP had worked so hard for British Columbians to make their lives better. And whether it's healthcare, schools, infrastructure, transportation, cost of living, etc. I'm committed to continue with this work and with some value addition in it. On the other side, the plans of John Rustad, they are not there for British Columbians. We cannot afford to go backward and discontinue this whole progress that BC NDP has made so far.
I have time to say two things about myself. The first thing is that I, being a teacher and resident, raised a family here in Cloverdale. A little nervous right now because my former vice principal is sitting at the back, but I'll do my best, Mr. Rick Hugh. The second thing I'd like to know about me is that I don't do land acknowledgements, and I think you saw that. When it was begun, I walked out, and I came back only after that. I'm, as said, somebody who represents the children in our school system. They have to go through those land acknowledgements every day, sometimes several times. It's compelled speech. That is not a Canadian value. It's also a violation of our fundamental rights, including that of property. What's happening in our schools, I think, is really alarming. And as someone who's been in the school system for an awfully long time, I have a PhD, I was a principal, I was a college lecturer in the area. I have authority to say this. The indoctrination in the area of gender, race.
Well, that's a tough act to follow, but you know, I couldn't disagree more. And also, Mike, you mentioned that you've been talking about this and talking about that. Yeah, that's the problem. The NDP does a lot of talking, and they don't get the job done. Good evening, everybody. My name is Pat McCutcheon. I'm running for the BC Greens in Cloverdale. And a little bio on me. I have had a long career as a mechanical engineer. I ran my own business for the last 25 years, a consulting business. My wife and myself have lived in Cloverdale for about 23 years. And I can't stress enough tonight that, that this election is very, very important. This is very important. John Rustad built his policy based on conspiracy theories. David Eby has a serious money management issue and fails to get the job done.
Okay, so 60 seconds is a short time. And we're all going to learn to be a little more succinct, but it'll get easier, I promise. I promise it'll get easier. So we've had a little bit of an intro, sometimes a little shorter than they were anticipating, but we got to meet everyone. So now on with our questions, and this is where we get the people who are asking for us to vote for them to answer our questions as submitted to the chamber prior to this event. And I will just remind everyone that we are here for public discourse and to learn. This is not about any kind of polarization or fighting. A dialectic and a discussion is what we need so that everyone has a chance to hear and learn. So respectful discourse is the course of the evening, and I thank you all for remembering. That's everybody. All right, so my first question tonight, I will read the question and then I will tell you who gets to answer first. What is your party's stance on universal child care funding, and would you continue the current $10 a day plan? The first question will be started by our independent, Jim McMurtry. Sorry.
Yes, I certainly would. As like Linda, I'm a grandfather of 5. I think it's very hard for young people. Others have talked already about affordability issues in the city, and I think it's absolutely essential we do everything we can to help young parents get by. So absolutely, and I'll do anything that I can, would do anything I can to support children.
Thank you. Next up, we have our Green candidate, Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, absolutely. The BC Greens are entirely committed to rolling out the $10 a day daycare. We are committed to having that in place by 2026. This is important to me as well. I have a son and his wife, you know, they've got a couple of kids, and yeah, they definitely could use this service. We won't drag our feet like the NDP. We will also commit to expanding before and after school care, and we would also commit to universal accessibility to the early childhood education model.
Thank you, Pat. NDP, who will answer first? Mike. Starchuk, thank you.
Thank you for the question. Currently, the model that's there is at $17 a day with the goal to get to $10 a day. And I think with our plan that we have, when I take a look at what people have been paying in the past and what the previous person, John Rustad, and how they were talking about moving off of that mark that was there. I go back a number of years ago, and people were paying in around $57 a day. So the going to a $10 a day is going to be life-changing for those people that are there. And I had the opportunity to open up the $10 a day spots that were at Don Christian, a recreational center at the back there. And I can tell you that the people that were there that day were talking about a life-changing thing that was happening to them. The people that were there were talking about saving over $1,500 a month in their childcare fees that were there, and what that was going to make a difference to them. So when we talk about expanding it, that's where we're going. We're talking about EAs in the schools that'll be there before and after school care.
Thank you, Mike. And Conservative, Linda or Eleanor? Okay, Eleanor Sturko. I hope so. Yeah, did you turn it on?
Ooh la la. All right. You know what, we got lots to say here, not a lot of time. So the fact of the matter is, under the NDP, less than 10% of the goal that they set for $10 a day childcare was implemented. They failed after 7 years to do what they promised multiple times. And you know, recently UBC researchers spent 6 months searching for low-income single moms with access to $10 a day childcare spaces, and in the entire province they could only find 17. Terrible. So look, we are committed to continuing $10 a day daycare, but we want real $10 a day daycare. We're going to expand $10 a day daycare accessibility. We're going to end the NDP's bias against independent childcare providers, because we need to expand those spaces right now. We also want to do, sorry, not much time, so I'm just going to tell you, financial relief for all lower and middle income families by expanding the child benefit, also creating 24-hour-a-day childcare spaces, because not everybody works Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. We need people in the trades.
Thank you. And going on to question 2. We've all heard that TransLink is greatly underfunded and cannot continue to deliver the transit services we currently have, and most certainly cannot deliver the services that we need under the current funding model. What is your party's plan for the future and funding of TransLink? This question will be first started by NDP, and I ask Haroon to start.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, for the transportation, it is very, very important for our communities to have a better, good, best transit system in our cities around. And BC NDP is working hard to provide these services to our communities. If I talk about the Surrey-Langley SkyTrain station, which is after 30 years, BC NDP is investing south of the Fraser. 30 years ago, King George was the last station, and there were some promises back then at that time of the government, John Rustad's government, but nothing was fulfilled. Now this project is ongoing. It's there, and it will be completed by 2029. There are some questions around that project about the increased cost and a bit of more longer time to complete this, but there are reasons for that. It's pretty much.
Thank you. I now ask Jim McMurtry.
Thank you. I think we can all sit here and say we'll spend money on this, that, and everything else, whether it's daycare, whether it's TransLink, and maybe other things that are going to be asked tonight. But there's other questions that need to be asked as well. And one of them is the government's ability to tax its citizenry, the government's ability to pay for these things. So you can't have this in isolation from a government that has to be rational in its spending. As well, we have to be reasonable about growth. Growth needs to be manageable. Otherwise, we'll never be able to have adequate public housing. As a final comment, my wife, who's in the audience, and I lived for 6 years in Switzerland, and we didn't have a car. So I'm a big believer in public transportation. It can be done, and it ought to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now I go to Linda Hepner.
Thank you. And transportation in the region has been an outdated model in terms of its funding for many years, and the NDP just simply hasn't kept up with how to correct that problem. The Mayor's Council has identified significant projects, all of which make sense, but under the current funding model simply won't be able to happen. So the Conservative Party will take a look. We will fully fund TransLink for 2 solid years with uninterrupted, reliable service while we undertake a audit and reform TransLink's financial model. It's the only way we will be able to do the kinds of things we want to do, like build a bridge, like SkyTrain to Newton. All of those will require a different funding model, and that will happen after a...
Thank you. And now, Pat McCutcheon.
Okay, yeah, the BC Greens are the only party that really takes transit seriously. We understand that it is impossible to build our way out of congestion. We've tried this in the past. It doesn't work long term. In fact, you just have to look east to Toronto right now. They're dealing with gridlock on their 18-lane 401 highway across the top of the city, and Premier Doug Ford is talking about tunneling underneath that. No, you can't build your way out of congestion. And so we need to get serious about public transit. The BC Greens are proposing a fast, frequent, and free transit plan. This means that public transit riders will ride for free. In addition, we will provide immediate funding to TransLink to double the number of buses within 3 years and triple them within 6 years. We also plan on implementing...
Thank you. All right. So we're getting better. We're getting better. It will be more succinct sooner. Our third question. Surrey has the largest school district in the province, and at our current growth rate of 1,000 to 1,500 people per month, this district is certainly not getting any smaller. How will your party facilitate more schools in our city? This question goes to Eleanor Sturko. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. So we do have the largest school district. It's growing very fast. Unfortunately, after 7 years of the NDP, 80% of our schools here are over capacity, and we definitely need to build more schools here. So we want to be able to open new schools when the families are moving into a neighborhood. So 8 years ago, BC NDP said that it was a flawed funding formula. They knew it then, they did nothing. We will be changing the funding formula to make sure that the districts can have their funds approved faster so that we can have projects shovel-ready sooner. The school district here said it takes 6 years right now to build a school. Far too long, especially when we're in this type of actual crisis that we have here. Kids can't even go in their own catchments to the schools that they should. We're going to support the districts to adopt different models, maybe urban school models. We're also going to phase out portables by continuing to use modulars and making sure that we can get kids into classrooms instead of portables.
Thank you. This question goes to Baltej.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So contrary to popular belief, actually people are coming into Surrey, not leaving. And the BC NDP has been doing a lot 8,000 new seats, student seats here now, 7,000 more on the way. We're building schools, just George Greenway there, that's going to have prefab attachments to it, and that's happening quicker than traditional school. So there's lots to be done. Hiring more teachers. Their plan is to add 20% to the classroom size. That's going to impact education, that's going to impact our kids, that's going to impact our teachers. This is something that we all need to turn our minds to. This is a critical election. And the other piece here is that, yellow, this is years of underfunding that we're trying to catch up to. This didn't happen in the last 7 years. This happened previously to that. In the last 4 years of John Rusted's government, 0 seats, 0 seats.
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Thank you. Again, as someone who has lived in Cloverdale for 30 years with kids here, one of the things that always surprised me is they build a new school in a new subdivision, and it'd be full right away. And so there was never any vision for what the community would look like 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. And people have talked for 30 years as well about getting rid of portables. So I don't believe anything that's being said. But most importantly, for me, I'm the only independent here, is we can promise all sorts of things, as we're doing right now with daycare and TransLink and schools and so forth. I'd like to be a voice right now for saying to you, I'm a taxpayer. There's only so much money I want to spend. And we have to be careful about keeping a dynamic local economy. So we have to consider this from a number of different ways, and the answer isn't simply to build, build, build. We have to plan better for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. And Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, well, just to quickly spend a little bit of time on Jim's comment about the taxpayer and where's the money coming from. Well, for starters, the NDP doesn't have a problem writing a $6.5 billion check to very profitable oil and gas companies up in the Northeast. You know what? The BC Greens want to flip that equation around. But anyways, getting back to schools. I mean, I agree with Eleanor that the NDP has been dragging its feet on rolling out classroom space. We're always playing catch up here. We don't have to do that. We know what the growth is in Surrey. You know, we know that there's 15,000 new people coming here every year. We know there's about 2,000 new students, and we also know where the neighborhoods are that are being built out. That's in a 5- and 10-year plan that the city has. We know this information, and yet our provincial government continues to build out behind the curve. That's not what...
Thank you. Question 4. What is your party's plan for below-market rental housing in Surrey? This question starts with Pat McCutcheon.
Okay, well, again, this is a space where the BC Greens seem to be the only government that takes this kind of thing seriously. We understand that it's the government that has to build out non-market rental housing. We cannot leave this to the developers. This has to be done by government. We're committing to constructing 26,000 non-market rental units per year. We will support nonprofits and housing co-ops with upfront investment, grant capital, and low-interest loans. We will make existing public land available for nonprofit housing developments, and we would not sell the land off to developers like the Conservatives tend to do.
Okay, thank you. And now Linda Hepner.
Thank you. I didn't know I was tending to do anything. For non-market house or supportive housing and rental housing, the BC Conservatives have a plan to address that through Get BC Building. Let me tell you how that's going to work. First of all, we have realtors here. You will understand the reintroducing tax incentive financing, much like Alberta had in the 80s and 90s, the MURBs. That is part of the BC Conservative plan. The other plan is to get rid of red tape because of the cost of housing. Let me tell you how where we are on that right now with the BC NDP. They have put in place housing costs $47,000 if you look at the STEP code, $70,000 for the zero in the
Thank you. When we go to the NDP, I'll ask Mike to answer next.
Thank you. We've all heard that the BC NDP and David Eby has a housing plan in place, as opposed to Mr. Rustad's plan to scrap everything that's put in place. When we talk about the housing that we're talking about, when we're the lower rental, and working with the Ministry of Transport in the high density areas that are there, there's going to be mixed housing inside of those towers that we see. But the one thing I want to talk about is what's coming here to Cloverdale when we talk about Sapone Manor. And that right now, if you drive down 176A, you're going to see a big hole in the ground where there's going to be 89 subsidized units for seniors housing, right, for those people here in Surrey. And the people that are sitting in the 50 units that are there right now are going to be moving across the parking lot into those brand new units that are there. And that's part of BC Housing and part of the BC NDP plan of getting over $6 million to Columbus Homes to be able to build those 89 units, tear down the other place that's there, put another 100 units that'll...
Thank you. And we go to Jim McMurtry.
Thank you very much. One day I had a student who really liked, buoyant, great student, and she was really depressed, and I said to her, "What's wrong?" And she talked to me at the end of the class, and she said, "My family slept in the street last night." So she was sorry that she didn't have her work done. And she was sorry that she wasn't focused in class that day. Obviously, government has a role to play. Obviously, developers have a role to play. But both together aren't getting the job done. It's outrageous for young people right now. The cost, the limited availability, the market. Let people who own houses rent. Make it possible for them to do so. So there is a solution, and the solution is allowing people to practice the one thing that's been degraded lately, but the only way that we can grow, and that's called capitalism. Let people make money by offering space to people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Question 5. How specifically will you work with a largely disincentivized, sorry, did I miss somebody? No. How specifically will you work with a largely disincentivized development community, as in the private sector, in the Fraser Valley to ensure the housing supply that we need is actually built? And how will you work with the municipality to streamline development processes, overcome obstacles and challenges, and obtain buy-in? My first answer will be Baltej.
Thank you. Housing is a problem. Door knocking on the steps of my community, I see that folks are struggling, and housing is an issue. And the BC NDP are working hard. We have a housing plan. There's 300,000 homes that are going to be built here in BC alone. And there are plans in place to allow young families who are growing their children here to look at getting into their first home through the 60-40 plan, where they're paying for they only have to come up with the 60% of that down payment. We're looking at prefab homes so that home is built quickly, and that cuts into those costs. We can't go back, which is the plan before the BC NDP came in, and hoping that all these homes will just get built out of thin air. So there is work that's being done, and that is around cutting red tape, working with developers, working with the cities to make sure that those targets are met. And we can't go back the way...
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Thank you very much. To me, it's plain. You have to allow developers to make money. I think what we have to also do right now, we have to remove ourselves from the context in which we're in right now. We're in Cloverdale. We're supposed to be answering questions for one community, business community for Surrey. But decisions are being taken outside that are having such a profound impact on housing. One of them is that Trudeau is floating the idea of doubling the capital gains tax. So what kind of developer would want to even stay in Canada, let alone the community here, if the developer is not going to be able to make money? So again, for our economy to work, we have to allow people to prosper. And we can't do that by forever spending, because eventually taxes are going to fall and it's going to be very hard for anybody to get a shovel in the ground. Thank you.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon?
Yeah, the BC Greens will partner with municipalities to meet housing development targets and reward successful communities by sharing a portion of the property transfer taxes. We will provide $650 million annually in infrastructure funding to the municipalities. We will also develop housing specifically for families, students, essential workers, seniors, and people with disabilities to meet the diverse needs of the community. We will safeguard existing green spaces and expand the urban tree canopy. BC Greens will also collaborate with the Construction Association to promote trades as a career option for young people, women, Indigenous, and racialized communities. We will ensure these training programs have affordable tuition. And I would just like to add at the end here, you know, housing is a human right, and we need to start treating it as a human right and get.
Thank you. And Eleanor.
Okay, thank you. So beginning 7 years ago, the NDP promised to deliver 114,000 new homes for British Columbians. They only delivered somewhere around 10% of that. And then they started introducing some pretty extreme legislation, including Bill 44. And Bill 44 is to increase density on single home lots currently. I just got a copy a few days ago of a corporate report from the City of Surrey that Bill 44 just in Surrey is going to cost you, the taxpayer here in Surrey, $800 million in infrastructure upgrades that will end up on your municipal taxes. So, you know, John Rustad is committed to repealing that legislation, as well as committing $1 billion a year for 10 years to help with adding additional sewer and water so that we can add more density to our communities, but working closely with municipalities to manage that. So what we're going to do to work with the development community is reduce permit delays. We're going to repeal the step code that's nailing on $48,000 to the cost of a new home. We're going to have flexible zoning so that we can work more fluidly with municipalities.
Thank you. Our next question. With increasing demand for rental housing in the region, what specific measures will you take to support renters and small-scale landlords while balancing affordability and viability of the rental market? I go first to Linda Hepner.
Thank you. Well, the John Rustad rebate for renters is $3,000 every single month, whether you are a renter, a homeowner with a mortgage, or paying a strata fee. That's off your income tax, and what that will do is it will equate to approximately $1,700 every year from reduction in taxes. The other thing is reducing the red tape that is currently slowing down the housing construction, and that creates such an affordability issue, and I think we already talked about around reducing that from the step code as well as from the zero tax initiative that doesn't do anything for safety but adds about $70,000 to the cost of construction for a rental unit. And when you do that, what you do is you actually...
Thank you. I now go to Haroon.
Thank you. So it is very important I mean, the renters are in big numbers living in our communities. I understand their problems, their issues, and at the same time, the supply of the housing that is actually increasing the rent cost. So we need to increase the supply of housing to balance the cost. I'm also a renter. I can tell how difficult it is with the increased rents, and I really appreciate the BC NDP putting the cap on increasing the rents. In fact, just today, my landlord asked me to increase the rent 15%, which is horrible. Thanks to legislations like limiting the rent increase, connecting it with the inflation, it is very important. And on the side of the supply of the housing, BC NDP is working very hard to increase.
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Yeah, I missed the last question. What, did I have opportunity to?
With the increasing demand for rental housing in the
No,
region.
no, the previous one I didn't get a chance to answer. I thought I was able to answer every question.
You did.
Not on how do you work with disincentivized developers. So I didn't respond to that. But that's okay. If we could start now, and I'll move on. I've already answered about the rental market. I'd just like to say to the young people in the audience, thank you for coming. And I hope you notice that I'm the only independent, I'm the only one, except for Haroon right there, using the pronoun I. Because one of the problems with party politics is people lose their own identity, their own ability to think for themselves and represent themselves. And the person beside me who's already insulted me talked about doing something for racialized community. And I'd like to ask Pat here if that means my kids. And if it doesn't mean my kids, go to hell.
Okay. I'd like to remind people that this is a civilized, respectful debate. And I'm not willing to allow this to be diminished in any capacity. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a respectful place where everyone is going to listen and be respectful of each other. And I understand that this may be an emotional time. I will give you a warning. If it happens again, you will be ejected.
Hang on, that guy insulted him first.
I've asked everyone to be respectful, and I'm giving warning yet again. If it happens again, it will be stopped. It's a warning to all. I'm sorry, I missed the insult. But what I will say is that we will not be diminished. This is a respectful discourse for our community to make informed opinions and informed votes. It's important, and this is part of our civic duty. Respect is what is founding part of our democracy. We have to respect that everyone gets a right to vote, to have an opinion, and to be respected as a member of our community. A contributing member of our community means that you give everyone space and honor to give that opportunity to each other. If we are going to be diminished in any way, this debate will stop. Okay, so now that we're all back on a happy place, we will start again. What is your party's plan to make life more affordable for the people of Surrey? This one starts with Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, okay. There's no question that the cost of living is a concern that I hear every day when I'm out knocking on doors. And this is something that no matter which government gets in power, they have to deal with this. And the BC Greens plan on doing that in a number of different ways. One of them is with our fast, frequent, free transit system. This will save the average transit user about $950 a year. If an individual is able to replace their vehicle with the free transit, they could save up to $10,000 a year. We're also committing to the $10 a day daycare being available to everyone by 2026. We will introduce poverty reduction measures that will increase social and disability assistance to $2,400 a month for a single person, $3,450 a month for a couple. This represents about 100% increase from current levels.
Thank you. I now go to Haroon.
Yeah, so the cost of living is one of the most important part of our communities. We all are going through with this. BC NDP is really working hard to increase the cost of living. Excuse me. So sorry. So sorry about that. So to decrease the cost of living, and in this manner, the BC NDP is started many programs actually, giving rebates through BC Hydro to the people, also tax rebates, tax cuts, just announced $1,000 to the families. The cost of living is the factor which is like we have just seen in recent years. The national interest rates are increased. The global inflation has increased so much that all factored in with the cost of living. And
Thank you. I now go to Eleanor Sturko.
Okay, great. So we've told you guys about the Rustad rebate, which is for mortgage, strata fees, as well as for renters. I think people know by now that we're going to cut the carbon tax. So I'll just take the rest of my time here to tell you about a few things that we're going to do specifically for seniors and their affordability. So we're committed to increasing SAFE, so that's funding that helps supplement seniors. We will be increasing that. We're also going to pay for the shingles vaccine, and we'll support people who choose to get vaccinated by providing those vaccines and paying for them. Conservatives of BC are also going to be paying for seniors' mobility aids as well as hearing aids, eyeglasses, and doing everything that we can to ensure that those things that actually cost seniors and cost some of the most vulnerable people in our province a lot of money up front. We know that seniors are disproportionately impacted by the cost of living, and that's why we've actually taken a lot of effort to ensure that seniors are a big part of our platform. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Thank you. I think what everybody has said on this issue is valid and important. Maybe I could contribute in this way. As a father, watching my children manage in the market is tough. And the thing that's been toughest for them in recent years wasn't the inability to get a job. It wasn't the inability to get a job of an okay salary. But that's tough for a lot of people. And I don't mean in any way to diminish that. For them, it was the interest rates. The interest rates went from really very low, about 2.5%. Again, I'm speaking somewhat to the young people in the audience, to about 7.5%. So you can imagine for young people who are out buying their first house, the average house could be over $1 million in many neighborhoods, how hard it is to do, and then to see their mortgage costs triple. So we can't overspend, because then that drives up inflation, which drives up interest rates. So it's not a question here of just saying we're going to spend more. It's more complex than that. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 8. With federal regulations for foreign students changing and causing funding shortfalls for schools that previously depended on foreign student tuitions and fees, what is your party's plan to address this shortfall? I will start with Jim McMurtry.
Could I ask you to repeat the question?
Yeah. With federal regulations for foreign students changing and causing funding shortfalls for schools that previously depended on foreign student tuitions and fees, what is your party's plan to address this shortfall?
Yeah, that's an excellent question and a difficult one for me to answer, because I live it. I worked in a school like that for foreign students right here in Surrey, and called Western College. So it puts a lot of people out of work if you simply say the foreign students can't come here. It would probably have put me out of work long ago, because even in high schools there's a lot of students from overseas. At the same time, obviously, it causes problems in the community. Is there enough housing? Are the foreign students going to take the jobs that would otherwise be available to our young people? So again, I just like to put the emphasis here on people being more rational in their planning for communities going into the future, and to consider all parts of the problem. Thank you.
Next, I go to Linda Hepner.
Thank you. The first thing that needs to happen is equity. I don't know that everyone would know that Kwantlen University, that is right here in Cloverdale, gets half of the funding that the other regional universities get. So I think a determination of what is equitable and how that funding happens is one of the first things that we would need to do. But in terms of incentivizing universities to bring in those students that we need, or to advance our own community for doctors, for engineers, and for high technology is really important. The Conservative plan is to increase that and to pay for those students that are prepared to go through those courses for us, so that we could be ready in the,
Thank you. We go now to Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, post-secondary education is extremely important to the BC Greens, and we would not hesitate to fund it appropriately. But I think we got an over-reliance on foreign students and to fund our post-secondary education, and this is probably a model that we need to move away from. Our priority should be more on making sure that the BC citizens have accessible and affordable post-secondary education.
Thank you. Mike Starchuk.
Thank you for the question. I think most of the post-secondary institutions that were out there, whether it was KPU or SFU or UBC, were a little bit caught off guard by the announcement that was done with the funding formula that was coming. But you can understand what was going on. As a person that sat on the Provincial Finance Committee, you could see how the foreign students were unfairly paying a share that was greater than anybody else, with no limits that were put on them. And I think what it did was it opened up a whole set of dialogue with that group of people that were there. And speaking with one of the post-secondary areas that are here in Surrey, one of the other things that they noticed was in the area of some of the colleges that were out there that were being funded federally and provincially as well, some of the foreign students that were coming inside of there were not meeting the credentials that were being done. And we had these various universities that were out there, or colleges that were out there, that were not providing the education to.
Thank you. Going slower doesn't make the time any faster. Question 9. With the pending U.S. election, what is your party's plan to protect BC's industrial and manufacturing sector from punitive and challenging tariffs and fees? This question, I will start with Eleanor Sturko.
Thank you for the question. You know, I think it's important that we have a strong provincial voice, both here for the province, but also to be part of a strong Canadian voice. Conservatives of BC will absolutely stand up for our province, and we will fight against unfair tariffs or penalties that put our own economy at risk. Our priority is the wellness of British Columbians and protecting everyday British Columbians, making sure that our jobs here are safe, making sure that we have, of course, healthy trade relationships, but our priority is the economic wellness and well-being of our province. So we will fight for you. We will stand up to any government, whether it be the United States or any other country, that will try to damage our economy, and will protect you. That being said, it's also important for us to have a good working relationship with the United States as a strong trading partner, and we'll also do that. We'll negotiate for this province, and we'll do everything we can to have strong economic relationships.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, I believe this is an area that sort of lands in the federal sandbox a little bit more than it does in the provincial area. But like Eleanor said, on the provincial level, we would definitely go to bat for any sector that is being targeted by unfair trade practices. No question about that. But more importantly, the BC Greens will incentivize value-added manufacturing rather than exporting raw logs overseas. BC Greens want to see more value-added manufacturing occurring here in British Columbia. we would also be building out our knowledge base. This is a growth industry in British Columbia, and that's something that we need to be focusing on as well.
Thank you. Baltej.
Thank you. Strong advocacy, standing up for British Columbians and small businesses here in British Columbia is what we need to do to make sure that all who are participating in the economy in British Columbia continue to do that without added tariffs or taxes or exorbitant fees. And that requires a strong voice in Ottawa and a strong relationship there. Beyond that, we need to build small businesses here. That's the backbone of our province, and that requires incentivizing. There is a shortage of staffing. We want to build out small businesses, build out relationships, benefiting small businesses. Where we differ with the John Rustad and the Conservatives is that they cater to the top 2%, and that is where the Chip Wilsons come in. So we're going to be looking at supporting small businesses, building out incentives, and creating more than 250,000 jobs since 2017, and strongest private sector jobs growth in the country over the last year. Highest wage growth among provinces, and one of the lowest unemployment rates among provinces. That's a track record, and we're turning up.
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
I'd like not to repeat what my colleagues here said. I thought it was excellent. I'd just like to, from my own perspective, if I go into a liquor store, I notice that to get American wine, particularly California wine, is a lot less expensive than BC wine. And that's even with already some duties on American wine. So I don't think we can be absolutist Minikian here. I think we recognize, to protect some of our vital industries, such as the wine industry in British Columbia, that it's important to have tariffs in one form or another. But generally they don't work because the other country does the same thing. So I think the most important thing is, as much as possible, to free industry and allow people to trade to as many people as they can. And I certainly am one that would work with American partners to have as few tariffs as possible and to do it in a very amicable way. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 10. The 2030 plan emphasizes a move toward electricity, but we don't have enough to meet current demands. What is your plan to make our province energy self-sufficient? I will start with Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, okay, this is a very important topic that British Columbia is going to be faced with going into the future. But first of all, it needs to be pointed out that our hydro dams, electrical production is dropping every year because of climate-related droughts that are affecting the reservoir levels. And it also needs to be pointed out that the NDP government has committed the entire electrical output of the grossly over budget Site C Dam to LNG Canada at a heavily discounted price. You know, electrifying is actually an opportunity. It's about participating in the rapidly growing clean energy industry. We cannot miss this generational opportunity. As Wayne Gretzky said, I skate to where the puck is going to be, not where it is. Oil and gas is a sunset industry. We need to move to the emerging and growing clean energy sector.
Thank you. Linda Hepner.
Thank you. First of all, I think we all need to give ourselves a reality check. If we think we can have enough electricity to do all the electric vehicles that the NDP are suggesting needs to happen by 2030, and we think we can create enough power for that, we are all sadly mistaken. Even using the current, the new LNG plant, that will not bring us anywhere close. We cannot, as a city, even get enough power to Campbell Heights for some of the businesses that want to be there. So once we've got past the reality check and we recognize there are some things we need to do differently, we look at geothermal, we look at wind and solar, we look at nuclear, but we have to examine all sorts of different ways of powering this province. And
thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Thanks. Thank you very much. I'm really enjoying these questions. We have in the United States a presidential candidate, Donald Trump, who's talking about drill baby drill and so forth, and we must do a lot more to make ourselves self-sufficient in oil and gas and every other form of energy. And then we have people like our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, saying that we'd like to have all Canadians in electric cars, originally by 2025, and then it got moved to 2030. I think you can't work in the extremes. This is my point tonight. Obviously, it's a complex issue. The thing that upsets me most is the fact that Canada is still importing oil and gas from dictatorships around the world. If we have the resource here, we should use it. Give those jobs to Canadians and allow Canadians to benefit, and not people, again, and other countries use the money for themselves to kill their own citizens.
Thank you. Baltej?
There is a shortage, and we know that, we understand that, and there's been a call for power by BC Hydro, and we have received over $3 billion in new investments. That includes wind, that includes solar, and that is the work that we're doing and working towards doubling our energy, and that work is underway now. So we will meet those demands. Nuclear is not an option, folks. It's 15 years out, 5 times more expensive, and we live on a fault line. So ask folks that have experienced earthquakes if they want a nuclear plant in their city or in their province. There's a lot of risk around it, and it's not in grasp. So we got to look at what's immediately available. There's $3 billion in investment already in front of us. We're exploring all of those opportunities and options, and this is the way to double our energy, and we will meet those targets by 2050.
Thank you. Question 11. Does everyone need a stretch? How are we doing? We're good? Let's take a moment, do a quick stretch, because this is a lot of stress for a lot of people. Come on, candidates, stand up, give yourselves a stretch. We're on the home stretch now. We're just going to give you a minute. All right. Don't leave us. We're doing a quick stretch, guys. This is not a runaway. Okay. I understand bio breaks, but I also understand the tyranny of the clock. Okay, I'm going to forge forth. Question 11. Under the current economic situation and affordability crisis, the government has offloaded much of the load of supporting communities and the needy to not-for-profits and charities. These organizations are already straining under the weight. How will you make sure that these organizations do survive and continue to serve as they are desperately needed? This question starts with Pat McMurtry. Sorry, Jim McMurtry.
Yeah, I just like to, that's okay. I just like to say, first of all, the people that I admire most in society are the people who are the most giving to others. And I think it's just incredible what we see in Surrey and elsewhere in this wonderful country of ours. People selflessly helping others. So there's a very strong place for, though, in any society, for those who do things, offer things without getting much remuneration or none at all. So we have to do everything that we possibly can to support them. And the time that I have, I can't explain all those things. Of course, government has to do more. And I think there is a dangerous tendency right now to pass things on. And we saw that with Indian residential schools, where governments turned to the churches. And I'm not blaming the churches, but it was passing the buck. It should have been taking care of those schools themselves. So I think the government can't, again, shirk its duties, but it should also, of course, have other private partners in the quest to make sure everybody prospers and is fed. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I go to Haroon.
Thank you very much. This is really important. It's in the non-profit organizations and the charitable organizations. They are the integral part of our communities. And without them, without their help, it would be very difficult to mitigate some of the issues we face every day. The BC NDP government, what I have seen, is working very closely with all these organizations. They are giving grants to them, supporting them financially. Here, I just want to mention one thing, like It depends. Whenever the problem arises, we need to address the problem right away. If we wait on that or look for other options to avoid that problem, it increases. And when we start working on resolving that problem, things got piled up. And we have other problems all got together with all these things. So that's what happened in the previous years here.
Eleanor.
Thank you. I feel really grateful for the charitable organizations and not-for-profits that do a lot of work here in Surrey. And both when I was in the RCMP and MLA for Surrey South, I had a lot of wonderful opportunities to connect with not-for-profits and see some of the great work they're doing. But for example, there's a lot of need right now because of the affordability crisis. Under the NDP, food bank use is up, way up, and donations are way down. So certainly addressing the affordability crisis is going to have an impact on a lot of the NGOs that currently work with government. But we do have to take a look at how we're funding them, whether it's year to year or whether we're doing multi-year grants so that they don't spend half the year having to reapply for funding the following year. We also want to make sure that we're actually building our economy and growing it. We have champagne wishes, tap water budget. If we grow this economy and get more revenue coming in, we're going to be able to do a lot more, including supporting more not-for-profit organizations.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect as well for the work that the nonprofits do in our community. But I also feel that a lot of the work that they do is a result of the work that the government is not doing. I don't know. I don't know how a government can accept 12,000 people sleeping on the streets every night. I don't know how a government can accept 6 to 7 people dying every day to the toxic drug crisis. Nobody should be sleeping on the streets. This is solvable. Finland has done it. Nobody should be dying from toxic drugs. This is solvable. The chief coroner and the public health officer have both published playbooks on how to solve the problem, but both the NDP and the Conservatives have arrogantly and swiftly rejected it. Compassionate societies, they do not allow this to happen. Our government doesn't have a problem writing billion-dollar checks to oil.
Thank you. Question 12. Based on your campaign so far, what do you believe the people of Surrey want or need, and what are your party's priorities if elected? I'll start first with Baltej.
Thank you. So I have been out on the doorsteps and talking to people, and the needs are very much mostly what we've been talking about here: housing, costs, healthcare, affordability. We have gone through an incredibly difficult time with COVID-19. It's a global issue where the inflation rates have gone up. People have been now facing high interest rates. And that is why we have turned a corner around all of this with ensuring that folks are supported where they need to be. With that $1,000 return on a middle income tax, we're keeping MSP premiums off the books. We're not bringing back tolls. We're making sure that housing is going to be affordable, making sure that first-time buyers, home buyers can see a pathway to their first home with a 60% down payment on a home, prefab buildings. These are all things that we're doing to make sure that...
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Thank you very much. So again, the macroeconomic perspective on this is that we need to, as previous speakers said very ably, we need to be careful about inflation. We need to make sure that there's sufficient employment opportunities, particularly for youth. And I think in many ways those are the most important things at all. Talking to people in Cloverdale, I hear other things. I think that Cloverdale in a few places needs, I won't go into detail where, but needs to slow traffic. I think Cloverdale should have access to the Mound Park if we're going to call it a park. I think Cloverdale is big enough to have an indoor pool. I'm glad to see it now having a skating rink. there's a lot that can be done in this community that I think hasn't been done for an awfully long time. And I think it's important to have the perspective of people like myself who live in Cloverdale for a long time. And again, particular focus on pool and parks. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon.
I've hit a lot of doorsteps over the last few months, and the issues that keep coming up are cost of living, healthcare, and public education. On the cost of living end of things, the BC Greens will be rolling out 26,000 non-market rental units a year. We will be implementing vacancy control, free transit. We'll increase social and disability assistance to $2,400 a month. We'll roll out universal $10 a day daycare by 2026. On the healthcare end of things, we would overhaul the current outdated and bloated healthcare model. We would also introduce our Dogwood model that includes team-based community healthcare centers that deliver primary care in your community. Everybody will be attached to a community healthcare center. On the public education end of things, public education would be a priority.
Okay, and Linda.
Thank you. Most of the time when you're at the door, they're telling you that it's unaffordable, that they cannot believe what's happening with the education system. They don't like the fact that we have so many portables and that they have doubled in the last 7 years. They're very concerned about health care. And when they hear the word substandard, when they hear the word substandard used by one of the doctors in our community around the care given at the Surrey Memorial Hospital, that is of great concern. Primarily, those are the things I'm hearing about. I don't hear a lot about transportation. That doesn't come to the top. But the affordability crisis and where we are relative to how much this government owes and what that's going to mean for their children and their grandchildren, that has often come up as well.
Thank you. I told you it gets easier. Question 13. How would your party ensure that our youth and talented professionals don't leave the province for more affordable and more rewarding jurisdictions? I start this question with Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, well, a big part of this has to do with sort of a mosaic of that makes up a community. You know, it's things like the cost of housing, it's things like healthcare, public education, transit, that kind of thing. And if those things have all crumbled or they become unaffordable, well, then your talent is not going to move to that community. And that's what has unfortunately unfolded over the last 3 or 4 decades. Our healthcare has crumbled, our public education is strained, and our transit systems are not there. And these are, the cost of housing has gone through the roof. And these are things that push people away from our community. These are all solvable problems, and we need to get on top of them.
Thank you. I'm assuming that's his time.
It was. I blew it. I didn't get the thing up. I feel like always 15 seconds.
Eleanor.
Okay, great. We're in a time right now where this hasn't happened except for more than a decade ago, where we had more people leaving the province of British Columbia than coming. So 70,000 more people left than came. And 40,000 of those almost went to Alberta, to the neighboring province. So 1 in 3 people wanting to leave because of the cost of housing. And when you narrow that down to youth, young people, it's 1 in 2 people are thinking of leaving. It comes down to housing, the cost of living, and the fact that young people don't see a future where they can make ends meet here in British Columbia. There's many things that go into that we can address. Obviously, cutting the carbon tax, our Rustad rebate for renters and mortgages, making the cost of housing more affordable. But also things like $10 a day daycare. The fact that the NDP has promised and failed to deliver. When people who are young and thinking of having families are worried about how will they be able to look after them, where will they get childcare, and where will they get educated, it's a big problem, and we're going to address that so they don't leave.
Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
I think there's, obviously lots of things that young people consider. One of them is where are they going to go to school? And many of the young people, and maybe a couple in the room here, have to decide what they're going to do for university or college, because the majority of kids are doing that. And one thing that is very frustrating for many people that I talk to is the school, high school, elementary school, and particularly university experience. And what I'd like to just quickly address, because I sense it's not going to be a question, is what's happened in schools. It's being captured by an ideology, called wokeism, postmodernism, whatever, where there's much less free, open speech than before, where academic values don't matter, where it's all about what a person looks like on the outside, where boys and girls are encouraged to consider that they're in the wrong body, where trans people drag queens come and read to kindergarten children. So I think we need to continue to consider the quality of what's inside a school and not just the outside, the buildings.
Thank you. Question 14. What are your plans to work with business to make the economy better? Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't get the NDP. Haroon.
Thanks. The youth, they are really important. Youth are the future. I'm proud to say that BC NDP has really worked for the youth. And if I talk about the eliminating the students' loan, or the BC Access Grant, or the Future Skills Training Program, or the tuition fee waiver, these are all for our youth. So youth are our future. We need to invest a lot in them. Lots of parents living here who cannot afford to involve their kids into the sports program. There are some non-profit organizations working out there helping the youth to get involved into the sports, but lots of parents cannot afford that. They cannot travel with their kids for their games. They cannot afford to pay the fee for the club. What I really want.
Okay, thank you. Question 14, we heard once already. I'll repeat it. What are your plans to work with business to make the economy better? And I will start with Haroon. What are your plans to work with business to make the economy better?
Yes, economy is very essential for our communities. It's a backbone, and businesses are the backbone of the economy. So working with the businesses collaboratively, that's the goal. The BC NDP is working on it, and I'm committed to continue this work with BC NDP. Businesses are struggling these days. That's understandable. I agree with that because there are so many things. We have just gone through the pandemic. The effects of the pandemic are still, some of the businesses are still facing that impact. The national interest rates, they are quite increased, the global inflation. So all these factors are impacting our businesses. But at the same time, we need to work very closely with the businesses to give them some ease. There are some challenges.
Thank you. Next, I go to Jim McMurtry.
I think there's lots of things that we can do to support the economy, make it better. I know many of the people here are going to have some great things to say. What I'd like to draw my attention to, and it's been said by my colleague to my right, Pat, is that you have to make, for the economy to be strong, people have to want to be here, have to want to invest here, have to want to live here. So I think, again, it all ties in with making the Surrey environment clean, healthy, work to support outdoor spaces for people, Do what we can to get more people to the beach. Do what we can to, again, have more sport facilities and other type of activities for young people. And also, since it hasn't been mentioned now, we have to keep Surrey safe. We have to support our police. We have to make sure those who are making our city less safe are not allowed to do so. So, thank you.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, a cost to business that is largely overlooked is the cost due to climate change events. And I'll give you just a quick example here. Hurricane Helene just roared its way through Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, and Tennessee. And the cost estimates that are coming out of that are absolutely staggering. For instance, just the destruction cost alone is running at about $120 billion US, and the cost of loss of business is running at about $100 billion US. These are not low numbers, and these are rippling their way through the business sector. I mean, back in 2021, the cost of the BC government and businesses was between $14 and $17 billion. These are very real costs to our business community, and we need to get a grip on this.
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you. I like to say that the NDP likes to take big business and turn it into small business, and small business and turn it into nothing. The NDP have added so many fees and taxes over the last 7 years, 33 of them. So one of the first things we're going to do is we're going to cut the small business tax in half. Secondly, we're going to reduce cut the carbon tax, and by pure example, that will reduce 26 cents off of every liter of gas. When businesses are traveling around the communities with their products, that's a big difference. We will reduce red tape that is crippling small business. In fact, John Mustad has said for every red tape that is, or every new regulation brought in, we will kill one. And we...
Thank you. Okay. Question 15. You tried. I cut you off. This is my last question of the night. And I really applaud you all. You've been such a great audience. I hope we've covered a wide spectrum. I'm going to ask this question, and then the next set of opportunities after this question is a final word from everyone, just so you're prepared. So question 15. Everyone knows that small businesses are the backbone of our economy and community. How would your party reduce the cost of doing business in BC to ensure the survival of this sector? And I will start with Eleanor Sturko.
It's going to be a little repeater from my friend Linda here, but you know what? There has been a lot of fees and tax increases on businesses. We had business actually picked up where the MSP left off, and businesses are actually paying now the employee health tax, which, you know, of course, we want to continue to have our universal health care that we all value here in British Columbia. But let's make no mistake that it is an increased tax to businesses here. Money goes where money grows, and businesses are having a hard time making their profits grow, and so they're choosing actually to leave places like British Columbia, which is having a severe impact on our ability to pay the bills, probably why the NDP's run up an $8 billion deficit and doubled the provincial debt. So we're going to have a look at the entire swath of taxes to see where it is that we can find some room to cut to support businesses large and small. Because without businesses here, we don't have jobs. Without jobs, people have an even harder time making.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon.
Yeah, there's no question that small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of our economy. Absolutely no question about that. In fact, these knowledge-based and service sectors account for about 3/4 of the British Columbia economy. And yet, historically, both the Conservatives and the NDP have been slaves to the extractive resource industries, such as the oil and gas, forestry, and mining, despite the fact that these industries only account for about 2% of the jobs. We need to be focusing much more on the small and medium-sized businesses. And this is a sector that the BC Greens really do prioritize. I mean, we want to boost, we will update the procurement policies to ensure local contractors and resources benefit first.
Mike Starchuk.
Thank you. As you said, small business is the backbone of everything that goes on in the community. And I can tell you during the COVID-19 crisis, I had my opportunity to speak to a lot of the businesses that were here in Cloverdale, specific to the racetrack, and how we were able to provide them with funding that kept them in business for all that time that was there. And when I think about what we've done, we've reduced taxes for small business by 27%, and while there seems to be a differing opinion of what happened with the employer health tax, but we actually doubled the employer health tax threshold so that over 90% of small businesses are seeing a benefit to that. And we're hearing that on a regular basis. So when we talk about what's out there for small business, the BC NDP government has been there from day one. We've been there making sure that your taxes are reduced at a rate that's lower than ever before, lower than when John Rustad was part of cabinet that was there, lower than ever before. And I can tell you that the grants that were given.
Thank you. And finally, Jim McMurtry.
Again, this is being a teacher. It's for the younger people in the audience, for those who would like to listen to me on this one. So you've heard a lot tonight about parties that are going to cut taxes and are going to increase spending. And the economy is, in this sense, a zero-sum game, that you can't do that without obviously incurring debt and stoking inflation. Really, I guess all societies have debt and have inflation, and I don't think there's any easy solution for this. But one thing that I would like to say to support small businesses in all of this is to be concerned about what's happened in Canada. Since Justin Trudeau got into power, the amount of debt that he has brought to us and to future generations is as much as all other governments in the history of Canada combined.
Thank you. I'll now give each candidate 1 minute for a final statement. I'll remind you, it's 1 minute. You should all be practiced now, catching that. And I'm going to start in a different order. I'll start with Haroon and go across.
Thank you very much. I believe in listening to the people. I believe in getting the input and the feedback of the stakeholders, and making, whenever we are making any policy, law, regulations, rules, so we need the input and the feedback from the community. That's what I believe. But here, something that really bothers me is the conspiracy theories. We all listen to the conspiracy theories, and sometimes we think like some, or maybe one of the conspiracy theory makes some sense to us. But when we discuss these things in our close-knit circle friends, we think twice to talk about these things. But it is very, very disturbing for me to see a leader of a political party is actually believing in conspiracy theories and talking about that. This is what I believe is really bad for our province. It is.
Thank you. Thank you. Jim McMurtry.
Thank you. I'm, as said, a teacher for a long time, and I'm absolutely apoplectic at times about watching what's going on in our schools. And I am an authority on that because I've been in them for so long. And I coach and I do charity events and I run plays and environmental clubs and all sorts of things. I hope you'll listen to this. I've got 30 seconds left. There's something called indoctrination happening, whether it's race and gender and indigenization, with censorship of literature, with falsification of history, with lowering standards. You need to be concerned about this. Our children should learn to think for themselves, should be able to freely inquire in school, and not getting in trouble for having a view that's different from that of their teacher or their principal. So what I stand for above all else, ladies and gentlemen, is to return the academic and traditional values that long guided us to this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pat McCutcheon.
Okay, well, thank you to everyone here tonight for coming out, and thank you to the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board and the Cloverdale Chamber of Commerce for hosting the event. Many of the issues we've discussed here tonight take far more than 1 minute to discuss. I invite you to stick around after the event and carry on the conversation with whatever issues are important to you. The poly crisis that we find ourselves in is largely the result of poor policy and decision-making from our traditional political parties over the past 4 decades. I don't believe that anything will change by electing the NDP or the Conservatives. Vote same old, you'll get same old, same old. The BC Green Party vision puts people first, and it also emphasizes the importance of a healthy natural environment, secure and supported people, strong and thriving communities, and institutions that are both robust and trustworthy. Vote be.
Thank you. Eleanor.
Cool. Okay, you know what? For the last 7 years, the NDP have been in power, and by every metric, they're failing. That's the truth. If you look around and you look at even the last 2 years under David Eby, there have never been more ER closures than we have currently in the history of our province. We've never had a higher deficit. In fact, just the debt repayment, the interest alone on that deficit would represent the 4th largest ministry in British Columbia in our government. So you know what, Conservatives of BC are a vehicle for change. If you're ready to change direction and head towards common sense change, we're gonna increase healthcare funding. We're gonna increase education funding. We're gonna end David Eby's catch and release justice system. And we're going to create a recovery-oriented system of care that removes financial barriers from treatment and that supports long-term recovery, because we truly believe that people in this province can recover. We want to create an economy where everybody thrives and that we can all create a future where people have hope again in this province.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mike.
Again, thank you to the Cloverdale Chamber and the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board. This is an important election that's coming before us. We've got a John Rustad that talked about moving SkyTrain years ago from where it is, and finally with the BC NDP government, you can actually see that it's being built today. You can see that there's progress to Langley. They had plenty of opportunity to move it and talk about moving it, and it didn't move 1 inch. When we talk about a hospital that's being built in Cloverdale, we talk about a regional cancer center that's being built in Cloverdale. John Rustad was part of the team in 2014 that decided that the land for a second hospital in Surrey along Panorama was considered surplus. And they sold the land to a developer who sold the land to a developer. And what we have now is a shopping center with some housing that's around there. And what are we seeing now? A government that says that we need a hospital, we need a cancer center, and it's being built, and it's after its first year of construction, and we're doing what we said.
Thank you. Linda?
Thank you. And thank you very much for the Chamber for holding this, and thank you for staying as long as you have to listen to all of us. I think this is an incredibly important election. And the reason I'm even in the race is because I am really concerned about where we are headed. Look at the debt. When the Financial Post, when the Globe and Mail, when the Business in Vancouver all say the words, cannot continue at this rate, we need to all be concerned. If you look at the interest rate, the interest rate we have to pay on this debt alone every single year, it's $5 billion. That would, in and of itself, solve the portable crisis in education. It would build a hospital every single year. So we cannot continue to add. We have to do economic, thriving.
Thank you. Baltesh.
Thank you so much. Firstly, I just want to take a moment to remember the horrific attacks on October 7 last year. Look, fastest growing economy of any major province since 2017, more than 250,000 jobs since 2017, strongest private sector job growth in the country over last year, highest wage growth among provinces, lowest unemployment rate among provinces. Last 2 years, record-setting $117 billion in capital investment, 73% more than Rustad. This is about who's fit. What you heard here in code is cut, cut, cut. This is not the time to cut. People are in need. So they're going to bring ICBC back, which means you're going to be paying more. They're going to bring MSP premiums back, which means you're going to be paying more. You're going to be looking at tolls. He said this is a slap to BC, people of BC. And then you have somebody that's pandering in conspiracy theories, bringing up Nuremberg trials, anti-vaccine, thinking that this is being used to control people. Look, folks,
Okay.
it's about...
Thank you. All right. So, thank you, everyone, for your time, your patience, your respect. And I know it's been a bumpy ride tonight. It's going to be a bumpy ride to October 19th, but I urge you all, you have listened tonight. Don't just take listening as your final duty. Go and read the platforms. Go and talk to your candidates. Do what you can to do your homework. This is our community. This is our province, and it is your right and, quite frankly, your responsibility to vote, and to do so as a well-informed, educated voter. That's the only way we're going to be able to make a difference in our province and in our lives. And if you talk to people who say, oh, I don't care about politics, one is the same as the other, blah, 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 politics don't affect me, well, guess what? Politics affect the roads you drive on, the schools your kids go to, what you eat, what you pay, where you go, and how you live your life. And if they don't think it's important, you have a job too. Make sure that they know it is important. That's what we're here for. That's why you came tonight, because you know, and you need to share, because we are all responsible.
I'd like 30 seconds.
I'm sorry, this was a moderated debate. This is a moderated evening. If I give you the opportunity, I have to give everybody in the room the same opportunity, and I cannot do that. We're well after 8 o'clock, which was my promised end time.
Thank you.
So, what I will say, please do your homework, respect your rights, respect your neighbors, respect your community, and do your duty. October 19th is the final opportunity, but there is early voting, there is mail-in voting, and there is lots of opportunity for you to check things out and find out what you need to know. So, thank you, and go forth in peace.